Let's talk about the metric system. Right now, what I need you to do is copy down all of these problems, push pause, write all these problems and either work them by hand or get a calculator and work each of these problems. Okay, so after you worked these, you should have gotten 5 times 10 is 50, 5 times 100 is 500, and 5 times 1,000 is 5,000. When you divided 5 divided by 10, be careful, that's not the same thing as 10 divided by 5. 5 divided by 10 is 5/10. Another way to write that division problem is 5 divided by 10. And look, 5/10. 5 divided by 100 is 5/100. And 5 divided by 1,000 is 5/1000. When you multiply 2 6/10 times 10, you get 26. 2 6/10 times 100 would give you 260. And 2 6/10 times 1,000 would give you 2,600 or 2,600. When you divide 2 6/10 by 10, you get 0.26. 2.6 divided by 100 is 26 thousandths, and 2.6 divided by 1,000 is 26 10,000ths. What I wanted you to notice is what happened to the decimal. When you multiplied by a power of 10, remember there's a whole number, the decimal's at the end. So when you multiply by a power of 10, it moved your decimal to the right, depending on what power of 10. Times 10, it moved it to the decimal to the right 1 place. Times 100, it moved it to the right 2 places. Times 1,000, it moved it to the right 3 places. And then same when you divide. When you divide by a power of 10, you're moving the decimal to the left 1 place for every power of 10. This is interesting to keep in mind when we work with the metric system. Now, the metric system is a really handy system of measurement because it works for all types of measurement. It works when we measure length, it works when we measure mass, and it works when we measure capacity. Now, we also here in the United States use the United States or customary system of measurement, but it's kind of willy-nilly, and we have to remember a whole lot of things, like 12 inches equals 1 foot, but 3 feet equal 1 yard, and 1,760 yards equal a mile, or 5,280 feet. And then we have to remember 16 ounces equal a pound when we're talking about weight. And we have to remember that 2,000 pounds equals a ton. And these are lots of difficult things to remember. So the metric system, you'll see in a minute, simplifies things because it works with powers of 10, works with tens, 10, 100, 1,000. Now, when we talk about length, we're talking about how long something measures. The basic standard unit of length in the metric system is the meter. And to keep in mind what a meter looks like, just to get an idea, a meter is about the height that a doorknob is from the floor. So from the floor to a doorknob is about 1 meter. And we use meter when we talk about length. When we talk about mass, mass is the amount of matter in an object. Here on Earth, mass is the same thing as weight. Now, it's not true off of this planet, but on this planet, mass and weight can be interchanged. When we talk about mass, the basic or the standard unit of mass is the gram. And then 1 gram, to get an idea of what a gram is like, 1 gram is about what the heaviness or how much a small paper clip weighs. And then we talk about capacity. And capacity is the amount of space an object contains. I think about capacity as how much liquid something holds. And the basic or standard unit for capacity is the liter. And a bottle of pop, and I'm talking about a big bottle of pop, not a family size, but a nice bottle of pop, maybe 2 small bottles of water, is equal to what a liter is. So that's a good way to remember what a liter is in the basic unit. Now, when we're asked to choose an appropriate metric unit, then we look at these different measurements. Let's talk about length. we already talked that a meter was the standard unit. Well, it's the height from the floor to the doorknob. A millimeter is something very small. It's about the thickness of a dime. Sometimes we remember it as it's how thick our tooth is. I'm talking about the thickness of the tooth. That's a millimeter. A centimeter is about the width of our little finger across, or our pinky fingernail is what a centimeter is. And a kilometer is about 11 football fields long. So if I were going to say which type of measurement would we use to measure the width of a highway, how far across a highway is, if you were going to run across the highway to get to the other side, what would we measure the width of a highway in? Meters. What about the distance across the state of Oklahoma? All the way across the state of Oklahoma? It would be measured in kilometers. Notice these abbreviations I'm using. And we're going to talk about these prefixes a little bit more on the next board. What about the length of an eyelash? Well, it depends on whose eyelashes you're looking at, but most people, to measure the length of someone's eyelash, you would use a millimeter, or you would measure it in millimeters. Maybe if you're lucky, your eyelashes are a centimeter or longer, but that is not the case with me. Now, when we talk about mass, when we're talking about weight again, we already talked that a gram is like a paper clip. A milligram is something very, very small, does not weigh much. It's about how heavy an eyelash would be, or a piece of your hair. A kilogram is like having a bunch of bananas, or one cantaloupe. That's about what a kilogram is like. So if I were measuring and I was determining the most appropriate metric unit to measure a car, what would I use to measure the weight of a car? Kilograms. The weight of a desk, probably kilograms as well. A school desk. And how about the feather of a robin, which is a really pretty small bird? One of a robin's feathers. I would say it's very, very light, a milligram. And then capacity. We already talked about a liter being about the size of a juice bottle, a nice sized bottle. A milliliter is like an eyedropper. If you needed to take medicine for your eyes, what you dropped into your eyes would be measured in milliliters. A kiloliter would be like a gigantic, a nice size soaking bathtub. So what would I use to measure how much gas I put into my car? I think I would use liters to determine how much gas I put in a car. How much water is in a pond? I think we would think kiloliters. And how much liquid is in a test tube? Again, I would go back to milliliters. So we have some real common prefixes that we use with the meter, the liter, and the gram. Now, this is how you convert within the metric system. And I drew these little stairs, and I'm going to show you these, and it's a good idea to copy them down. And I'm going to tell you an easy way to remember them. It's stair steps, kilo, these are prefixes. Kilo, hecto, deca, the basic unit, which stands for meters, liters, or grams. So the beauty about the metric system is that it's used for length, it's used for capacity, and it's used for mass. Then we have deci, centi, and milli. And again, these are prefixes. So these words, with the exception of the ones listed here, go in front of meters, or in front of liters, or in front of grams. So if I'm wanting to convert, and I'm going to show you this on the next slide as well, if I'm going from a large something up here down here, if I want to move from, let's say, kilometers to meters, I'm moving to the right. And so that's like moving my decimal to the right, which is really like multiplying by 10 or 100 or 1,000. Each of these steps is 10 times smaller or 10 times bigger than the step before or after it. So if I move if I'm moving to the right, I'm moving my decimal to the right. That's the same thing as multiplying by a power of 10, each step. If I'm moving from something small to something larger, if I'm moving up the staircase, I move my decimal to the left, which is like dividing by a power of 10. Each step I take is dividing by 10, which moves my decimal to the left. Remember the first board that you looked at and you used your calculator to solve? Now, the way that I remember this stair steps is this little saying. You can come up with a different saying if you prefer. Mine is King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. Oh no. King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. Something else to remember is that the decimal in a whole number is at the far right, because we're going to use that when we start converting between measurements. All right, so I've drawn this again. Some of this is kind of wiped off. I'll just kind of replace it here. And I've kind of given you the basics here. Now, so let's say I want to convert 3600ths kiloliters to liters. So I'm going from kilo, here's the kilo, to liters. Here, the basic unit is the liters. So I'm moving to the right or down the steps. I'm moving 1, 2, 3 places to the right. So that's basically like multiplying by 10 times 10 times 10, or multiplying by 1,000. So it means this decimal that I have in 3600ths kiloliters gets moved 3 places to the right. 1, 2, 3. I have to add a 0 there. So 3600ths kiloliters is 360 liters. Let's do another one. 1 8/10 kilometers is how many meters? Again, I'm going from kilo to the basic unit, meters. So I'm going from here to here, which I'm going to the right, and I'm going 1, 2, 3 steps to the right. Again, my decimal gets moved 1, 2, 3 places to the right. I just need to put in zeros there. And so here's my decimal. So I have 1,800 meters is equal to 1.8 kilometers. If I have 0.4 kilograms and I want to convert to grams, I'm going to the right a lot here, but I'll change that up in a minute. Kilograms to grams. Again, I'm starting here and I'm going to the right. 1, 2, 3 steps, which means I move my decimal 3 steps to the right. I have to add zeros because I had to move 3 places, and 400 grams is equal to 4/10 of a kilogram. Finally, look here, I'm going from centimeters to meters. So here I'm at centimeters, and I want to go to meters, the basic unit. This time, I'm moving 1, 2 steps to the left. So my decimal moves to the left 2 places. Well, where's the decimal in my whole number 50? Remember, the decimal in a whole number is at the far right. I'm going to move it 1, 2 places to the left because I went from centi to meters. And so my decimal is now before the 5. I could also write that as just 5/10 because 50 hundredths and 5/10 are the same thing. Now, you don't have to draw the stair step. It really isn't a matter of having a stair step. So I wrote it this time just going straight across. Kilo, hecto, deca, meters, liters, and grams, that's your base unit, deci, centi, and milli. Remember, King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. I still made my notes about the decimal moving left and right, so let's do a few more. I have 160 milliliters, and I want to convert to liters. So I go from milli to liters. I'm starting at milliliters and I'm moving to liters, and I move 1, 2, 3 places. And I'm moving left, so my decimal, which is at the end of a whole number, gets moved 1, 2, 3 places to the left, and so this becomes 160 thousandths liters, or 0.16, because that 0 there does not matter. This is 7 kilograms, and I want to convert to grams. So I'm going from kilo to grams. This time I'm moving to the right, kilo to grams. 1, 2, 3 places to the right. The decimal in a whole number is at the far right. So I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3 places to the right, which is really the same thing as multiplying by 1,000. And so I get 7,000 grams. I want 5,100 milligrams to be converted to centigrams. So I'm going from milli to centi. I'm taking 1 step and I'm going left. So I move my decimal 1 place to the left. Where